Multiple panel.
I expect that we're going to have more people kind of as we go. We've had a lot of demand for this class, right? Ali, just joking, you said, what are we talking about today? Right? The hottest topic in real estate, which is how the heck do I win for my buyers right now? So we're going to dive into that, and we get to hear from these guys. I'm going to have them introduce themselves in just a minute. But before we do, I want to hear just 2 or 3 things from you guys. What do you hope to walk away from today with? What do you expect? What do you hope to walk away from with?
A little more confidence.
You need confidence, Chris? You show up pretty confident. I'm just teasing. All right, awesome. Confidence. What else? Yeah.
I think strong messages we get to bring back to our buyers that lets us know that they're not alone and we're not alone in this conversation.
Perfect.
It was with a room full of colleagues on this exact discussion, and we're all going through this. Here's what we're doing.
Yeah. Great. Take some pictures, take some video, put it on your social media, let people know that you're doing what you need to do to stand on these conversations so that you show up as an expert for your people. Awesome. One more. What else do you hope to walk away from today with?
From a lender perspective, I think it's learning what we can do to help the agents win better, you know, and then vice versa. I think there's some things that Ali can probably share from our perspective as well to you guys.
Awesome.
That we're seeing.
Yeah, perfect. Love it. Okay, I want to go through this panel. Thanks, you guys. This is going to be awesome. I have high expectations, no pressure. We're going to go through introductions, and then before we dive in, I want to tackle one specific term on contracts that we're seeing some issues with. And some of you might have written something illegally in a contract, and I don't want any of you to be embarrassed when I say it. So I'm going to tackle it before you mention it. Cool? Yeah, you don't even know what I'm talking about. We'll get there. Let's do introductions first. So we just go down the line. Tell us a little bit about who you are, how long you've been in the business, and what your buy side looks like.
Sure. My name is Dave Bialke. I'm with the Graham Smith team. Been the lead buyer agent for about 6 years with Graham. Had my license since 2004, but I would say full-time for the last probably 7 years. Yeah.
How many buyers did you close last year?
Last year, 105.
So he
Year
knows a
before,
thing or two. A year before?
115.
Okay.
Year before.
Currently have, and it went down. It went down from there. So
So we'll just go with the upward trend. Got it. Thanks, Dave.
Yep.
Aaron.
In the future, I'm going to sit down line from Dave. Start. I'm Aaron. I'm with the Michael Kaslow team. And I've been licensed. I actually started with Jen in 2017. So 5 years, which is crazy to think. And last year I repped 52 buyers.
Awesome.
Wait, check production numbers.
Yeah, you go.
All right, my name is Reda. I'm with Team Taylor to Envoy Mortgage. I've been in the business for 13 years. I got in when everybody was running out and said, "You're crazy for doing this." Last year, I did 146 transactions, and our team did just around 500 as a whole. So we've seen quite a bit.
And I'll pause you there. So Ali, Ryan's here. They've got a couple other people here. They're starting April 1st, could be one of our preferred vendors for this next year. I asked him here a year ago, not because he was going to be a preferred vendor, but because he was helping agents win in transactions. He was doing the same. And so it doesn't really matter to me where your company is right now. I want to help you guys figure out how to win. And that's why they're here. And we'll move on to Alex too in a second here, but they have a different perspective, right? They're seeing a lot of purchase agreements across all brokerages. And that's part of why we asked both of them here today, is to be able to give us a unique perspective that can help your buyers win. Okay, cool. Thank you, Ali.
I'm Alex Marsolais. I own Home Free TC. We started in 2016, and I've closed a little over like 8,000 transactions since then. Last year, our team did 2,000 buyer sell sides. We wrote over 2,000 offers for our real estate agents. We're currently a little over pace for offers written this year and right on pace year over year for buy side.
I'm Sarah Church. I'm on Jen McFadyen's team. I came to the Twin Cities just now starting my third year. So last year I did.
I'm Jalana Moe. I'm from the Lake Minnetonka office. I just hit my third year last week, and last year I closed 27 buyers.
Awesome. Nice work. We got a good group, huh? You ready? All right, before I dive in with Ed, Claire's in the back, just in case I need her. I'm gonna give you the quick scoop on this one issue. We hope we don't need her. I don't want to get into the weeds, so I'll say that. This could get into the weeds really quickly, and we may have so many fun things to cover. I don't want to get into the weeds, so I'm gonna give you the scoop on this. If we've got weeds questions, let's save them for after. Cool? Okay. So when you write an offer on a condo, there is a CIC, right? So there's a 10-day right of rescission that we are seeing in the industry, a theme of agents waiving that 10 days. It is Minnesota state law. You cannot just waive the 10 days, okay? The first thing is day one, they have a right to 10 days to review the documents. Day one starts counting the day that the buyer's agent receives the doc. So if I'm the buyer's agent and I go show Ryan's listing, if I say, I think my buyer might want to write on this, send me the docs now before I even write up a PA. Day one starts the day after I get those docs. If they write a PA up 3 days later, that's day 4. Got it? The counting starts the day after the documents are received, correct, Claire? Okay. So after 3 days, after the third day, you can go to the buyer and say, now you have the right to waive the rest of the days, but you cannot have that conversation until after the third day happens. So you cannot write it as a term of the purchase agreement that they're going to waive the right of rescission. It's a separate waiver that they sign after the third day if they decide to waive the remaining 7. If it's been 10 days, they review the property. 10 days later, they decide to write a purchase agreement. They don't need to sign the waiver. They've already had the 10 days. You're good to go.
Can they
This better not be a weeds question.
take 3 days and then on day 1 sign the waiver? Just cover that. Can you shorten the 3 days?
About the waiver until they've had.
Cannot talk to them about the waiver until they've had 3 days to review the contracts. So in theory, they get a property and a year in, they find out that there's a $20,000 assessment that they had no idea about. Or I heard of someone recently, I can't have dogs and I didn't realize that. Hey, they told me I had to sign this thing and I didn't have the opportunity to read the 80 pages for the document. I'm gonna sue my agent now because I thought I didn't know what I was doing. Yeah.
So if we're getting offers from buyers that include the waiver up front.
By the way, would be best practice to let them know that it actually states that it cannot be a term of the PA. So remove that language because you don't want to be a part of.
It's illegal.
It's illegal.
I would like to cash my weeds question.
Yeah, and this is a weeds. We get 2 more
Well,
questions.
yeah, this is only like, this has happened to me before with listing agents, and I think it'd be good for people to hear about it. I have had a listing agent tell me, because listing agent, uploaded the docs as a supplement, you can waive and should waive, and I told him that's not how it works, and he got a little saucy with me. And it sounds like
Tell them to take his
you
stuff
you
somewhere
still
else.
have to do the 3-day, even if it's uploaded publicly to the MLS,
So
right?
I'll answer this quickly. If you as a listing agent email, then you can prove that
Yeah.
the buyer's agent received it. You upload it on the MLS, there's no proof that the buyer's agent looked at the MLS. So that's where I think the question is.
But you still can't put it in the PA, right?
You can't put it in the PA to waive it,
Yeah.
but if you had more than 3 days to review it before you write the PA,
Yep.
the waiver could be signed because you had more
Got
than 3 days. But it literally in bold says it cannot be a term of the PA to waive.
Got it.
Listing agents, it might behoove you to make it a part of your checklist and process to send out those docs
Send it
and
out when they
to people that
request
show
it.
the property.
Yep.
If there's a way.
That's probably an important conversation, communication to the listing.
Yes.
Yeah.
What we're trying to do is win offers.
Yeah.
We don't want to ever upset the fancy listing agents out there, so we want to always.
Okay,
We-
take away pro tip number one.
You could ask them for the
Upset
docs,
the fancy
right?
listing.
You could ask
Yeah.
them for the docs. You could say, my
So
buyer's super interested, will you send
Yeah.
me the HOA docs right
You
now?
never want to tell them how to do their job, so they may not understand, they might not understand that, so.
Okay, this is an important point. There's so many things that we can talk about. I think let's come back to that, because I do want to talk about how are you communicating with your listing agent? Is rapport important? Is communication important? Is the working relationship important? So what is setting people apart? So we want to talk about that communication. Before we jump into that, let's talk about the terms right now, because that's a big thing. What terms are you guys writing, and what are you seeing that's winning? What are you getting creative with? I'll just open it up to you guys. We'll go down the line. Earnest money. What do you see? What are you doing typically with earnest money? What are you seeing? What's necessary right now to win?
I can start. So we track as many data points as we can when it comes to offers accepted. Offers written can be a little bit harder for me to track, just depending on what we're talking about. For offers accepted in the month of March, we're averaging 1.6% of the purchase price for earnest money. Our median is 1.4% of the purchase price for earnest money. I can't tell you how many offers accepted are making earnest money non-refundable at some point in the contract. I can tell you that 7% of the offers we're writing are making the earnest money non-refundable at some point in the contract.
Okay.
7% are writing at some point earnest money non-refundable. And that point varies depending on the offer, whether it's at the time of the offer, after the inspection, after the written statement. I don't see anything consistent on that just yet. But that trend is starting to go up here over the month of March. I'll let you guys know if we see it continue going into April.
What else on earnest money?
I have it in my notes, like I always coach 2%. And then
Really loud.
always coach 2%, especially when there's a lot of multiple offers. And then same thing, making it non-refundable.
I think on our side of things, the biggest thing that we want to convey to the listing agent is we want to convey two things. Number one, that they're super strong as far as their financial stature. And number two, they're willing to put their money where their mouth is to really want this house, right? So earnest money is a very easy way that we can do that by offering like silly amounts of earnest money that they're going to put down in their down payment anyway. Of course, the risk naturally is if the financing falls through, they lose that. But what we do to mitigate that is we fully underwrite them up front. So that's off the table. The only risk is them losing their job. So that's played really, really big, is putting like 20 grand in earnest money up front, you know, and that just shows the listing agent that they really want the house and they're strong. They're putting their money where their mouth is.
Upfront, non-refundable, is that what you're saying?
We've done that. We've done it. Yeah.
We've done it many times, but I would say more importantly is finding out if you have to do it. So a lot of that, for me, it's not one absolute on what's one term you have to do every time. It's communicating, and if we're being told by the listing agent, we have offers A, B, and C like that, you know, it's good knowledge to know if you're gonna win. You probably have to do something like that, so. You know.
So how about inspection? What are you seeing? What are you writing?
I'm not writing a lot of inspections myself, you know, again, it's all individual transaction based, but finding out, we wrote one just yesterday, last night, we got accepted. It was on the market for 5 days. That's forever in this market. So for us, the leverage changed quick, you know, we wrote a decent offer, and we got to have an inspection. So it's all about too, I guess, if what are other people doing? We're not, I don't know what the percent is, Alex, for you, but
We're seeing 48% this month waiving inspection, and that's all inspections. That's not contingent, not a walk and talk, seller approved, it's all inspections. I'm working on a couple of ways to track better data points in terms of if they're having inspection, but it's not contingent. But I can tell you 48% are waiving all inspections, and it's been hovering somewhere between 30 to 40%, or 30 to 50% of all contracts since about this time last year.
Yeah, I'm gonna pause. If you guys are not taking notes, you should be, no shame. What do you think it does when you show up to an appointment and you're able to quote any one of these numbers or 10 of these numbers to be able to say 48% of buyers right now, we know across X number of transactions are not writing an inspection in. you have the choice. Here are the pros and cons. And here's what we know in the market, rather than going to your clients and saying, it feels like you might not win if you want to have an inspection. That's a very different type of conversation. So I would say that.
I know we're in an urban environment, and some people may be writing offers with septic wells. Are they waiting, say, all inspections? Are they accepting all inspections as well?
Great question. So that is, I'm just looking at the residential inspection. Your traditional, like on the contract, how many days, just that. I don't have data for you on the well and septic. If you want it, I can try to pull something later.
I have a quick question for you, Alex. You were saying the number that we're like not having any inspections, including walk and talk. How do you know whether they're having a walk and talk inspection if that's happening prior to putting in a PA?
You know, that's a really good point. I guess we don't. I should not have said that. That's a really, sometimes I guess I see that corresponded when we're submitting the offers, but I guess I don't have a great data point on that. Thank you. Yeah.
One thing I want, go ahead.
I was gonna say, we do see quite a few buyers that have like, you know, Uncle Bob the handyman or somebody that just walks through with them quick so they can waive that inspection. I think the important thing is agents, I know it's like a faux pas to tell them, don't get an inspection or you're gonna have to. What we do on the lending side is we talk to them in advance. We're saying, when we pre-approve them, we tell them, hey, here's what others are doing to win offers. And you bring them a data point like that, you know, and then of course, chat with your agent. If that's a tool that you want to use, make sure you discuss it with them because it's very situational and property specific, you know. So if you have an uncle, if you have somebody, a lot of people are doing that.
That's a great tip.
One thing I wanted to talk about, Shannon and I had a conversation the other day, and maybe some of you guys can speak to this. You know, we have sort of a cover. This is being recorded. Do not redistribute this. We have sort of a cover.
People in Zoom are having a hard time hearing, so if everyone could just enunciate a little bit louder.
Speak up. We have a clause that's a cover your ass statement regarding inspections, right? Because we want your clients to sign something ideally that says, we know we could get an inspection and we're choosing not to. It's not illegal, like the issue we talked about earlier, and we want it to be disclosed. Now, Shannon and I had a conversation the other day about the reality that some people are writing how much over right now. All cash offers, they're writing 50 over, 100 grand over, but they want to keep their inspection. Well, why? What are they afraid of? Let's say the sewer isn't working and it's got a crack in it, the chimney isn't usable. How much money at most would you be spending if everything that went wrong could go wrong in the house?
10 grand on a sewer, maybe 50 at the very most.
Okay. So they're willing to pay X number of over in cash. So they've got the cash for it and they want to still have the inspection. So the question is, what would cause you to need to walk away from this house? That's one of the perspectives, right? Can you guys speak to that? Or I just wanted to open that up as a way to have the conversation.
Well, I am not a fan of people skipping, but I always, the way I explain it to clients is it's not my job to tell you what to do or not do, but it is my job to tell you what you're up against. To the extent that I can find it out. The qualm that I have is the price points that are generating the most offers are such that the people buying those homes, every dollar matters so much. And so like, those are the people that if they waive inspection and then something happens, they're screwed. They don't have the money. Whereas at higher price points, people are so cash heavy, they are able to boldly skip inspection because they just figure whatever it is, I'll just pay for it. If there's an issue, I'll pay for it. So I don't encourage people to skip, but I do ask agents about it. I try to like walk that respectful line of being fairly brazen in what I ask about. And I just tell agents when I call them, I know that there are things you can't talk to me about. And so just bear with me as I ask some questions. And I usually will just joke and say, like, tell me to go take a hike if I push too far. But I will say, have you had a conversation with your client about what their expectations are for incoming buyers surrounding inspection? And every now and then I will get a listing agent that says they would like the incoming buyer to inspect because they're nervous about liability, even if the buyer willfully waives it. And what I do, how I handle that, then I've had a lot of success with inspection guarantees. I don't really like people doing pass fail. because in my experience, that actually unravels things a little bit with the listing agent. The listing agent is trying to do a risk assessment for their client, right? They're trying to figure out, is this offer too good to be true, or is it going to close? And a pass fail is actually a big risk, because like one thing could cause that and tip the needle toward fail, and then they back out. And backing out bodes poorly for any listing. So the way that I write it up is that the buyer is only going to negotiate on previously unknown issues, individual issues that would be projected to cost more than X dollars. I have that conversation with my clients about, here are some of the really common things we see and what they typically cost, and it helps them set that tier. Like, do they want to do $2,000 or do they want to do $5,000, which basically leaves it up to a sewer line or a roof. So when I know that an inspection won't lose it for them, I've been building those guarantees into pretty much every offer, and a lot of them work.
So let's talk about what you guys have both mentioned. When I know that this is an issue or this is something the client wants, let's talk about what the communication looks like with the listing agent. So you go see a property, you take some clients on the showing, they think they're gonna write. What do you do? Dave, let's start with you. What's your process?
The process, I think, well, the process for me, a lot of this starts in the buyer consult, setting expectations, like.
Yeah.
Going to
No,
early
go ahead,
at.
go
So
ahead.
starting, I mean, because for me, a lot of this comes down to setting the expectations. If I take a client out, I say, hey, what do you want? 4 bedrooms, great, let's go see a house. And then we get there and I say, hey, we have to waive our inspection to get this. Their eyes are huge. It's going to be a shock to them. So if I can kind of set their expectations in the very beginning and let them know what we're seeing in the market, what the market is right now, seeing the value of buying a house, I always kind of say, if they trust you in the consultation, they'll trust you when you call in to write an offer. So building that trust. Now, when I call the listing agent, I don't know if there's one secret sauce for any of this stuff, but for me, my most success has been probably just being very persistent and calling a lot of agents over and over.
What does persistent mean?
Maybe annoying, I don't know.
Like, how often are you calling them and what are you saying?
200 texts.
No, for real. Okay, so Dave, I've heard this from several agents in our office that said, honestly, I said, you said that he hounded you, but how did he hound you in a way that wasn't annoying? And how did it cause you to set yourself apart? So when are you calling? How often are you calling? What are you saying?
Yeah, it's a good question. Sometimes I don't know what I'm saying, but I will say there is a formula for me, at least, to, we have a great team, right? We've set up good processes. So, we have awesome showing agents, Tim and Jill. They go take them out. We talk about what buyers are going to get under contract this week, which properties. So if we pick out 4 properties, I'm starting to call the listing agents on Tuesday that are coming soon to just introduce myself, not really, just to say hi, build some rapport. I'll call them again on Wednesday. I'll call them every day up to the going live.
What do you say when you call them? On Wednesday? You've already chatted on Tuesday. On Wednesday, what do you say?
Hi, it's me again. I try to keep it light, but just digging in a little bit more. It's maybe strategic, but maybe it's not. It's never like, hey, what's it gonna take? It's more just introducing myself on the first call. Property seems perfect. Setting expectations. Have you talked with your seller? Is there going to be any sight unseen offers? Would you take sight unseen offers? So just digging in a little bit more. Would you mind if I call you back and check in again? No. I mean, more than anything, just trying to build a friendly relationship. Sometimes wanting to ask them questions about their business. Everyone's stressed out. Sometimes they want to share. They want to talk. So it's more about building rapport and then digging in more about the property as it goes live.
Okay.
And then when it's go time, when it's live and offers are coming in, it's more about digging in strategically on what offers are looking like.
Okay, great.
All the way up.
How about the rest of you leading up? Do you do anything like that leading up to writing an offer?
I have to admit, I don't call that much.
Okay.
Like leading up to it.
Okay.
I think one of the biggest things I've done is submitting feedback that's very detailed and right away, because a lot of times that goes to the sellers. So when the sellers are just getting like real quick feedback from agents that just want to clear the notifications off their phone, and they'll scroll all the way to the bottom and just say not interested or very interested, I'll go in and say like, thank you so much for the showing. We can tell that you've loved this home for a long time, or, just more like speaking to them because they're getting that come through. And then you're going to be the one that sticks out when they get 50 feedbacks of just quick stuff. And then one person was very detailed. So then they'll say to their agent, hey, like who filled out that really nice feedback?
That's great. I love that. I love that. Okay, great. I'm going to jump off script. We got a couple of listing agents in this room that are on the ALC. And I said, I'd love to hear from you guys real quick. I know they're not on the panel. What kind of communication do you get prior to receiving offers or receiving offers? And what do you like to see?
Are you asking?
Yeah, Shannon.
Well, I just had a deal with Dave. And I think the thing that stood out for me is.
Why is everyone giggling?
Like, sorry for you.
I have a story about it. You go first.
The thing that stood out for me was he took about 5 minutes to tell me how beautiful I was. It's true. It's true.
And offered you dinner afterwards.
Yeah. But the cool thing about that was I was guaranteed ownership of the client. No, I think what I was thinking about, like with Dave, and I've had other deals with Dave, is, he shows up in a way like you want to talk to him. I think a lot of times, I'll be honest, sometimes I avoid phone calls, but I think with Dave, when it's I enjoy talking to him, and I learn from him too. That's the other thing; it goes both ways.
I'll come back to you guys in a second. For you guys, do you always call the agent then? If you're writing an offer, what's your process when you write an offer on behalf of the seller? What's the communication with the agent look like at that point?
So after a showing, I will always call the agent. Oftentimes they don't answer. And if I don't hear back from them, usually they do give me a call back. I will text or I will try again. I try to always communicate with them before setting in the offer. However, unlike Dave, I don't want to annoy somebody. And so I want to make sure that I'm on their good side and still build that rapport, but not, irritate them through the process.
Okay, anybody else?
Sending a video to a listing agent can be a really good way to do that too. In the body of the email.
Speak up a little bit.
Sorry, sending an email to the listing agent, sending a video to the listing agent can be a helpful way to do that too. Because a lot of times, especially with how many offers people are getting, a lot of listing agents are dodging phone calls, I've noticed, or like I've been a listing agent before when you get a call from a buyer and they go on for like 10 minutes about how awesome their client is and like how much this is going to mean to them. And then you like completely forget because you got 20 more calls just like that. So kind of, keeping it specific to like this email came from Sarah and this video was in here and I can very easily tie it back to like, this is who sent this versus just forgetting everything when it's all verbal over the phone.
Nothing to do with the offer, just a introduction?
No,
or
but like
the offer?
it's to do with the offer too, but everyone always says how great their buyers are and like all that kind of stuff. And it's good for the listing agent to know, but it does get overwhelming. So just putting it in a video so they can clearly like trace it back to you is good.
Wait, so who does the video? Like you're doing the
Yeah.
video? And you're,
Yeah.
okay, and you're like.
Highlighting the offers.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, highlighting offer terms and talking
Okay.
about the buyer, yeah. And then the other thing too, just that I had in my notes was I stopped having the lender call the listing agent and I just CC them on the email. And then they can reply to the email with all like.
Lender like
They can still call for sure, but the only problem with that was I had so many people that would just be like, they take the call while they're in Target and they're like, what buyer are you? What listing agent are you? Who are you representing for? And it just gets lost. So again, like being able to trace it back to like, this video was from Sarah and this lender was CC'd on this email and it just all is kind of like one nice bundle. And then it's less, I don't know.
I CC the loan officer and I make sure they call.
Okay. Well, yeah.
I'm
it is
older than you,
important for
so.
Oh, there's nothing wrong with like, and most of the time, honestly, like I'll still probably have them call. I shouldn't have said that I don't.
Is
do that. But the CC has worked really well because then the listing agent isn't getting even more phone calls, and getting more bombarded. And I think they appreciate that too.
The CC, just from a lender's perspective, it lets us know, speak up.
Yeah.
It lets us know when the offer is going in, right? Number one. And then number two, it shows kind of that this is a team. Like these are people that have worked together before. This isn't the first time. This isn't just paired up randomly. We're in this together. And then at that point, it lets me know This is the presentation that went in, and then I can go ahead and call. So I didn't give the thumbs up like, hey, thanks for saving me the phone call. We absolutely need to call. And the video thing plays really big. I'll tell you what, if you send a video, if I text, listing agents are super busy. They don't want to answer phone calls. A lot of times, especially not from lenders. But if I'm going to text them a video, guess what? You're going to watch that video every time, whether you respond or not, but they will watch that video. So walking through the terms of the offer in just a quick text, if they don't answer the phone call, has played pretty big. And you'll at least get back like a thank you or whatever, but I promise you they will watch it and they'll remember you.
Reda.
On that. So you have an outline of the offer and then you have a video explaining that outline to make that more personal.
That's basically what you would say in a phone call, but in a video.
Listing agents, what percentage of the time do agents call you when they present an offer?
Very low. Extremely low.
Blows my mind. Blows my mind. That's crazy.
5 to 10% of the agents that are presenting offers to listing agents actually make a phone call. So if you just make a phone call and not 20, like, you know what? Here's the deal. I know we're kind of teasing about the Dave thing, but he closed 100 and however many less. It's working for him.
Right.
You should not be questioning this.
Start calling me about my phone calls, Dave. Graham,
Clarify though, I do get texts,
Okay.
from people saying I have an offer coming in.
what do you
And I
think
would say
about that?
30 to 40% are texting me, but I would say about 5 to 10% are calling.
What do you prefer?
I prefer nobody to communicate with me and I can look at all the offers, talk to the agent or talk to the seller, and we can strategically decide how we're gonna respond to get the most amount of money from the seller.
So you wouldn't want Dave calling you?
Buyer's agent against one another till we get the highest.
But I was going against Graham.
With that being said, I said
get a
that,
hold of.
yeah, when we're on the other side of the conversation, I block Dave's phone calls. No, not really. With that being said, I said that a little tongue in cheek because if you're not going to force me to answer some questions, I'm not going to answer it. One of the strategic ways I have of communicating with people is saying a whole hell of a lot without saying, and I do that on purpose. That's not my I'm serious. That's not a joke. People ask me, what do you think is the number one question every single buyer asks, or agent asks when they call?
Closing day.
What's the closing? Everybody asks that same question. And I say, they're flexible. And then I shut up. And they're like, oh, okay, good. Okay. Well, we're going to have an offer for you. Great. That's awesome. You didn't ask me anything. But when it's somebody like Dave who's building a rapport, I'll give you a perfect example. This week, there's an agent. Dave, I'll tell you who it
You
is.
speak up, stand up, speak up.
So we had an agent this week that made an offer on we had 3 different properties, one multiple bids this week. And one of them, the agent called me the very first day that it went on the market. She called me every single day. They put in an offer. We made them wait till we got the offers in. She asked if there was a shutdown price. She did everything she could every single time. It was either a phone call or if I sent her a voicemail, she'd follow up with a text. When all the offers came in, they were almost all mirror images of one another. There was very little differences between them, but there was one offer that was $5,000 higher than everybody else. And we decided to counter that agent to match the $5,000. We gave them the chance
Why that agent?
because they were the only one that called me that instantly and had that conversation.
What is important or valuable?
Show me
What does it
they're dedicated.
demonstrate?
They're dedicated to getting to the closing.
That's it. Even if it's annoying, what it shows is I'm not gonna have to do your work.
That's right.
You're dedicated to making this happen, and I see that. So I think it's worth being annoying in that way.
I think that what Graham's saying is right. They want to make sure it gets the closing, but also they want to work with people they like. And I'm not saying I'm likable or anything, but they want to work with someone that they are feeling a little connection with too.
Can I add to that? Because I would say this is so true about Dave. Not all of us can do what he does in the way he does it, okay? You have a natural aptitude, Dave. I'm not kidding around. You have a natural aptitude that people just like you. You know, when you speak, you're likable. I remember somebody on the team once said, like, when I speak, I look angry, you know? And I never understood that until I was watching Ali speak.
That's the Middle Eastern with me, man. I can't help it. I'm smiling under my beard.
Literally, sometimes you gotta take a break. Like, I do this all the time. I make a point about calling back every single agent that makes an offer that doesn't get the offer. I make that point. And I really have to take a breath. And sometimes people are mad and they take it out on us. And my natural response is to go right back at him, right? That's my natural. I have to take a break. Dave isn't like that. I've seen people beat you up on the phone and you're just like, yeah, no problem. That's good. Like, you're just so cool and collected about that. There is a huge power in what you're doing, Dave. And I really mean that. And we can all take something from that to just calm down a second. It's not about us. Right? It's about our clients and how can we show up as our best self for our clients.
But that's a key point, but it's not just me. I think it's common sense. Jill and Tim and I were talking about this morning. What are you gaining if you're picking a fight with the listing agent? Like, you're not going to win. I mean, we're dealing with one right now. I don't particularly care about her, for her.
Don't say that about Shannon.
I mean, our team has, like, we call it the vent line. We vent to each other. I'll call Jill or Tim or Graham. We'll let it out between each other. And then I go back to the listing agent. And it's about winning for the client. So if I pick a fight with her, I mean, it's over. So somehow I'm trying to master the liking everybody.
Well, and would you say that there are battles that you choose and some that you don't? There was an example I heard recently of, you get a document a certain way and you're going to be working with them, and instead of their chicken scratching the initials on changing a term versus sending an amendment over, does it behoove you to go to that listing agent and say, this is the wrong way? You do it the right way. Like, that's not a battle that you want to choose in this kind of a market, especially. But why? Why is it good for you to be right in that moment? What is really worth fighting over and not that? Yeah. Okay, cool. Anything else about the terms that is notable we haven't covered? Go ahead, Sarah. It's you.
About one thing that I did once that it's funny to me that it worked because it was the same bottom line for the seller either way, but I ended up writing 2 different offers for like the same house, but just doing it like with different terms. So one of them, for example, is $300,000 house. We wrote $330,000.
Speak up a little louder.
$330,000 with a full appraisal gap, and then the other one was $310,000, paying $20,000 in the seller's closing costs. And it's ultimately the same bottom line to the seller, but in their mind, they loved that their closing costs and commissions were getting paid for by the buyer. Like, just in their mind, that was like, oh, cool, like our fees are getting paid for. So they ended up wanting to go with that one. And then that also helped a little bit with the appraisal question because the purchase price was lower. So if you have a buyer, I mean, obviously that's not going to work for everyone that's 3% down and doesn't really have that ability to bring that extra cash. But if you have a more cash heavy buyer, just giving the seller options and being able to go to them and say like, hey, everyone else brought you one offer and you have to pick that, but we are bringing you 2 and you have 2 different options and it's ultimately the same bottom dollar for you, but you can choose how you'd like to structure it. I think the seller just felt like they were kind of in the power seat a little bit, like getting to pick how they wanted it. And then again, they loved that the closing costs were getting paid for.
Love it. This is maybe kind of a basic thing. When you guys send it over to a listing agent, an offer over to a listing agent, how do you do it? Do you send like the Authentisign link? No one ever does that, right? Do you ever receive Authentisign link? Okay. And what?
Then they have to.
Usually, unless it's $1 million cash, it's never getting looked at.
Okay, so let's talk about specifically, how do you send an offer over? And
One
why?
PDF.
One PDF.
Beautiful PDF.
Is it numbered? I mean,
Well,
The letters attached to the offer, the letter to the seller, it's not separate.
well, I ask. So, I mean, it's been a long time since I did a personal letter because I feel like they're going to the wayside now.
a
But
personal letter being a letter from the buyer to the seller.
yes, but I ask. I ask in the same run as asking about escalation clauses and everything else. And sometimes they'll just say they would be fine seeing a personal letter, but don't include it in the bundle. And so that's another reason it's important to have that call is they'll tell you kind of exactly what they want. But in the actual offer PDF, we have like a really cool branded cover sheet. So put all the key terms on that, but also contact info for everybody that matters. So like transaction coordinator, the lender, the title person, to save them the time, like, you get an accepted offer and then you spend 2 days going back and forth over email. Who are you using for title? And it's just like the worst. So we just build it into the cover sheet, makes it easy. And I don't know if everybody has the same order, but it's always like cover sheet, pre-approval letter. We have a lender questionnaire that we have loan officers fill out that kind of pre-answers questions and concerns they would have about the financing. Yeah, compensation. And it's like earnest money, PA, personal property, compensation, arbitration, lead-based paint addendum, seller's disclosure. I just do that same order every time, but one PDF. And then just like do the little things that make things searchable, like in the subject line of your email. Make sure you either mention your name and the property address and or the client's name. And do the same thing with your file names. Just like, if we could all just start naming our files, please, that would be great. But it just makes it so that it's like super easy for them to search it in their inbox if you're in a stack of 20 offers or remember like what.
This may seem basic. I want to just really connect the dots. What does it demonstrate to the listing agent? Professionalism.
Organized.
You have your
This will get to closing.
Yeah, because that attention to detail and ability to organize translates at every point of the transaction. You want to demonstrate that ability throughout every point of the transaction, your ability to communicate, your ability to have everything crap together, right? It seems basic and it's not. And when a listing agent is getting 10, 20, 30, 71 offers on a property, do you think it makes a difference? It absolutely does. So
I want to echo what Aaron said. We do all the same practices and it goes a long way when you're reviewing, 30 plus offers sometimes. Also including offer highlights in the body of the email so the agent can quickly see which offer was yours because when you have 30 in front of you, nice at a glance to have that.
yeah, perfect. Yeah, right.
Perfect timing for me to make a PSA on behalf of lenders. I know that agents and title typically are going off of the property address when you're putting it in subject lines. Lenders, we go off of buyer name, last name. So if you just like Aaron, I love how you do that because I've seen your offers before. Having the address and the buyer's last name in it, it saves us so much time. I have no idea what 212 110th Street is, right? I have no idea. And it's always the buyer's last name. So if everyone did that, just did both in the subject lines every time, oh my God, it'd be awesome.
All right, I want to take a little bit of a turn here and talk about your clients, right? So Dave mentioned this a little bit. You guys are setting expectations with clients on the front end. What are the conversations looking right now with your buyers? How are you bringing them through? I've also had conversations about, hey, there aren't any properties for them to see right now. They're an active buyer. So what are you doing right now if there's sort of dead time with buyers? Let's start about that. Let's start with the first conversation. How are you setting expectations, or are you with your buyers right now?
I'll jump in because that's the biggest thing that we do is add pre-approval. We have a conversation, we walk through the application with them, and we go through not only just qualifying, right? We have to go through how do we make them competitive buyers in this market. So for instance, somebody comes in and they say, hey, you know what, I'm planning on putting 10% down or 20% down, right? So let's go with the 10% example. We say, okay, hey, great, all goes well, 10% down. However, what some people are doing in order to get their offers accepted is they're doing appraisal gap coverage, right? Should that come into play, here's what it looks like. 5% offer, use that other 5% to cover that appraisal gap, or 20%, and then we walk them through the mortgage insurance and what that looks like. I think the biggest key here is, we go through all of the stuff between the earnest money, appraisal gap, limiting or waiving inspections, all of that stuff. So the first time they hear it is not, when you guys are over here trying to put an offer in with them and they're like, well, now we got to think about it. Now we got to talk to the financier and figure out how's that feasible? What's the mortgage insurance going to be? Right. And when they're asking you guys all those questions at offer time, when it's go, you guys are like, oh, Ollie, I don't have any idea what to do here. Right. Can you talk to them now? I know it's 7:30 p.m. at night, but they're trying to get an offer in before 8. That doesn't feel good for anybody. Right. So what we do is way up front before they're looking at any properties, have those conversations, walk them through what it looks like on the financial side so they know all the tools that are in the tool belt. And then once they get out there, they have a savvy agent with them who's going to decide what tools do we need to deploy. Talking to the listing agent before the offer goes in and getting information. Graham's a pro, right? He stays pretty tight-lipped. I know that. But a lot of listing agents will give you the farm if you just ask the question. So now we know, okay, speed to close is everything. This is a vacant house, right? Or they're moving out or they're moving out of state or whatever. So now all of a sudden this underwritten pre-approval, we can close it in 2 weeks. Hey, can we get this done? Yep, that's the biggest thing for them. So all of those things come into play, but that conversation up front, I think, is absolutely everything. It's so important.
Perfect. Isaac?
I think this is a great panel and how we're having conversations with listing agents. But I think a strong buyer consult is not more important than the terms. Certainly. I mean, having those conversations with your buyers about what the market looks like and what people are doing to be successful and what they should expect in the process, that I think gives me more strength in how we're creating offers, more so than just the terms we're putting together on paper.
Yes, perfect.
If they can't meet those terms that are necessary, whether they're appraisal gap coverage or waiving inspections, they need to change the way they're looking or what they're looking at, whether it's things that are days on market or whether it's, a lower price point. They need to expect that.
Are you guys having conversations right now that are, maybe it's not time to buy conversation for people? No?
No, absolutely
Okay.
no. I think typically what we're doing is like, we can't change the terms of their financing, right? That it kind of is what it is. We can't give them a raise. We can't give them more money in the bank or whatever. But if somebody's FHA or somebody's like down payment assistance, right? Obviously listing agents, right? That we don't say it out loud, but typically we'll try to go for conventional offers. If somebody does fall into that bucket, we let them know, hey, you know what? This is where you stand, and these are the offers that are typically going to get accepted over yours. So you need to make up for it in other ways. Right. And having that conversation, I know ideally equal opportunity, it doesn't matter, all that stuff, but having that conversation with them up front is really important. Letting them know, hey, if you're FHA, that's fine. What are the listing agents going to be concerned about? Right.
Yeah. Can I echo something?
Yeah.
So FHA and DBA buyers are having luck. It's just a lot harder than what it's been in the past. But right now we are still seeing about a 4%, 4% of all offers are accepted are FHA and 4% are DBA. So it is happening. Typically those people have the best luck when it's a pre-MLS sale. So within the Butler offices, right? Or if the house has been on the market for a high days on market, like they said, 5+, right? Or 10+. But we are seeing those people a lot of times getting close to list price with seller paid closing costs. We're seeing them have success. And even sometimes in highly competitive multiple offer situations, we're still seeing FHA and DBA buyers win sometimes with seller paid closing costs. Ultimately, what the sellers are looking for is confidence that those buyers are going to be able to close. So the terms that are inside of the offer, if you can't change your financing type, what else can you do? It can go a long way.
Yeah, Shannon and Graham.
Well, so that brings up a point that we were just recently talking about on our team as far as I'm curious to know what are people writing in for the interest rate right now?
I still rate market.
I never use market. We stopped doing that, 2 years ago?
Well,
It's market.
We're not supposed to. I know that Claire could probably speak to that, but I think it's also very dangerous right now.
Well, what I usually do is I make sure to talk to the client about it, and I figure out, because they're always getting an estimate from their LO when we're framing up offer terms. And whatever the estimated interest rate is, I tell them I'm going to bump it 1% and make that the cap in the PA. Because it's really unlikely that they're going to go up a full percent in the duration of the transaction. And you would still have the option, of course, to stick with it, but it would give you an out if something crazy happened and they actually spiked. We just didn't like market because it's like, how does that protect anybody? It doesn't do anything.
Yep. Good point. Good question. Yeah, Graham?
I wanted to rewind a minute to the VA and FHA.
Speak up.
I wanted to touch on the VA and FHA conversation. So that example that I gave about the agent that was in vacation, that was a VA loan. We accepted a VA loan over a conventional loan. And she had told me a story that her buyer had lost out on the last house because the agent said, we're not really interested in taking VA loans, we don't like VA loans. And I asked, was it a similar house to this? And it was identical. This was a 15-year-old felon. There's nothing that's going to be a problem. And so my point is, I think there's a lot of agents out there that misunderstand what these programs are. And that's where the key really is a a buyer's agent, as a listing agent, as a loan officer, to have these conversations and show proactivity. If somebody came to me with an FHA 203K, those that know who it is, if somebody came to me with an FHA 203K that never has done one, there'd be little to no chance we would accept that because anybody that's worked on that understands that's specific. But I also ask about VA loans for folks that do you work VA loans ever? Is this your first one? Because there are some intricacies with it. But as a seller's agent, we do not look past bond programs. We never do. I would just tell you this: your identical offer, 3.5% down FHA, 20% down conventional, all the terms are the same in conventional probably most of the time, unless you're a magical agent. And in that case, actually, that agent actually helped get that done. So there's intricacies, but to the way to explain it, I think to your clients is if you have FHA or VA, you're probably going to have some hard times at the houses in 1918 house of income, with a 5 year. That's probably not going to happen.
I would say getting creative. You just have to get creative.
Well, it's good timing. I had an FHA buyer, and I want to be clear for all the buyers agents in the room who are like feeling it. I spend a good 3 to 5 weeks every year pretty downtrodden, where it's like a slump and it's really hard to get offers accepted. And even those of us who have been in it a little bit longer, it's tough every year. But I did have an FHA buyer win against 21 offers 2 days ago. But the thing is, what it took, it was a probability play. It's like a certain number of lightning strikes have to happen, including a great listing agent on the other end who knew how to talk to his clients about why this wouldn't be a problem. So this buyer had written 6 offers, never got them. We had a drink on Saturday to talk about just you're doing okay.
Did you cry into the
No,
drink?
with the client. And got a drink with the listing agent. It was all very corrupt. But we talked. It gave us a chance to talk more about why does FHA make it tough? Because I think a lot of buyers, we don't dig into some of the nuances of what is doing that. They just feel like I did all this work to get pre-approved and my money's not good enough, and I'm really sad. And so
we did that client last year, Dave, remember? When we presented the FHA offer and she said, oh, what is that, a poor person's loan?
Yeah. See, and I'm just take FHA out of the allowable financing. I have listing agents get salty with me for presenting FHA. And I'll be like, you put it in the terms. You said it in the MLS that you intended, don't be this poor person. Anyway, I could go on. But so this offer.
What was really cool about your offer though with FHA is that every single part of an FHA offer that would give a seller pause, you addressed.
Right.
So that there wasn't anything that they could bring up that would be a barrier.
Right. And it was because of the conversation I had with the client where we talked about what do they look for in FHA appraisals that freaks out listing agents? And can we pre-address that for them?
So peeling paint.
We just wrapped it up in one. We knew enough about the property that actually peeling paint was probably the only thing we could come up. But we had so many clauses in this freaking offer that we had to put it on its own addendum instead of the other section because it was too big. And it was we did an appraisal guarantee, we did an escalation clause. We also had something in there that said the buyer will cover any work orders at their expense and they'll pay the reinspection. And we just had to go down the line of any perks that we knew we had permission to do. And they're doing an inspection. So they get to do an inspection, but we put that guarantee in there that they would only negotiate on things above $5,000. And what ended up happening then was we presented that. I did a video and I was hoping that I was the only one out there doing that, but apparently not.
Just you two, I'm
So we did a
sure.
video, and I had no idea what we were up against the whole time. And so then he came back to me a few days later and said, here's the thing, we have better offers on net, but we liked your presentation the most and your communication the most. And you indicated flexibility on closing date, and here's what we're thinking. And they wanted to move it out 60 days with a rent back. And so we talked through all the terms, we drew up a rent back that they wanted, pushed that back to them, and then they won. And I asked him how many offers he got, and he said 22, and I was glad I was sitting down because I never thought that we would get it,
So persistence.
It sounds like a good communication.
And
A lot of.
I was channeling my Dave Bialke. That's what would Dave do?
Well, we
VA loans,
it's still true that they don't have to put anything down, right?
Yeah.
So then that buyer could be really, if they had 10% cash or whatever,
Yeah.
And they can bridge crazy appraisal gaps when they have that because you can adjust it down potentially all the way.
Can you still cover appraisal gap? It doesn't give you an escape.
Yeah, okay.
Somebody was raising their,
Yep, go ahead.
Gonna take more money. Couldn't feel a big problem. Money costs, okay?
well, it's up to the buyer, right? So they had seen it in person and we had that conversation. I just said, are you sure that if there's a work order, you'll do it? And, that's not up to me in the end. I just have to make damn sure they actually feel good about it.
Well, that's the key is just knowing like, what are you up against? What's the listing you're concerned with? Doesn't matter what kind of financing you have. What are they concerned about? Strength of the buyer. They want to make sure this gets to the closing table. So all of the hurdles that can come up as a buyer's agent, make sure you address every single one of them. If you have a government financing, that's fine. They don't care how we get to closing. They just want to make sure they get there and that their buyer or their sellers get the most amount of money, right? So if you can take care of those things, like it sounds like you did, you're fine. You'll get them accepted.
Clerical point to your question, Dave. So on that one that we gave a reference to, I don't even know if we did this right, but we wrote in the FA or the ASC clause. We wrote in the dollar amount that was the appraisal gap. So it was the number that was the appraisal gap coverage minus the agreed upon asking price of what it is.
Got it. Yep. Yep. Okay, we've got a few minutes left. One thing that I think is important to talk about, Erin, you touched on. I've heard agents right now saying that they're burnt out and we haven't hit April 1st yet. What are you doing to maintain your mental fortitude and how are you leading the way for your clients right now?
I think it's important for us to stay. I think it's important for us to stay really positive. It's really easy to get in this rut and like feed off of everyone else being frustrated and kind of at their wit's end, but I refuse to be like that in front of my clients. You can, like you said, have those days where you go get a drink and kind of need a minute, but I think that should never show the client because when you're walking in and you already feel defeated to the house and you're like, well, good luck on this one. It's like, that doesn't help anybody, it's like, that's never how, we should never be communicating that it's going to be tough for them. We just kind of say like, I think it's really important because they're looking to us for that leadership and the guidance and the counsel and the encouragement. And so I think it's our job to stay really focused and stay that positive person for them.
A couple of years ago, you were actually teaching a class where you spoke at a team meeting, Jen, and you had talked about jumping into the pool of emotion with your clients. You're saying the analogy as if you were a lifeguard and someone's drowning in the pool. You don't go in there to get them because they'll probably drown you too. You throw them a life raft. And as agents right now, I think it's probably pretty easy to feel like you're drowning because you're working with 5 buyers and you have to show them 10 homes and then you write 8 offers and maybe one gets accepted, right? And keeping that positive mindset is so important because yes, you might be working with all these people, but they're only working with one realtor, right? The other thing is that clarity of expectation of how many offers are you going to have to write and how many homes are you going to have to see? Right now, our team is seeing a 38% offer acceptance rate across the board, and just being able to tell your clients that or something along those lines, that's the expectation. We're going to have to do a few at-bats before something gets accepted. Here's a number to base off of.
Make sure to have conversations with your clients about what they can't control. And Dave's really right. I think the main thing for any agent is the consultation, period. In any market, at any time of year, you can knock out so much of this stuff in that. So I always tell people, we can control our effort. We don't have control over the results so much, but we're going to nail the things we can control. And then it's a matter of if, not when. It might not happen when you hoped it would. If you are coming to me and you're a low cash buyer and you want to get this done in 3 weeks, we might not get that done, but at some point in the year, it will happen. We were just talking about this before the panel. This is a really good time this spring when it's really hard. You can build up a backlog of clients, and sometimes it gets rough because you have a bunch of clients that no one's getting homes. And then at some point, I think the record for me last year was in like June. In 1 weekend, 8 offers got accepted, and those people have been losing for 4 months. And then all of a sudden it worked out. People will start giving up. And if you can coach your clients to be the ones that don't give up and keep looking, everybody will go up to their cabins in the summer and you'll be here writing offers and they'll start getting out.
I love it. Yeah.
To that point, I tell my clients that are getting discouraged, the only thing I can guarantee is if you quit, you won't buy a house. That's the only guarantee right now. If you keep at it, there's a bunch of people that are gonna bail.
Michael.
When you talk about getting discouraged, I think something that's important is, like for Aaron, for example, he's got 25 buyers under contract right now. And there is no way that, so what he has to do is he has to look at these folks and say, okay, out of these 25, who of these 25 can write an offer that is aggressive enough to win? They've got the ability to do that. It's not that they're just an A buyer because they're willing to make an offer. They're an A buyer because they've got the ability to win in this really unique market. And so as you go through that list, all of a sudden that 25 comes down to 4. And those 4 are the ones that he is focused on right now to get them under contract, because the sooner he does that, because these folks have said we're willing to be aggressive, get those 4 under contract, and you can start working on the next 4 and the next 4. Or you might say, my plate's full, I've got 25 buyers in contract, but then when you do that exercise, you find you only have 4 that can actually do something right now. And you're out looking, lead generating, looking for that lower fruit that you can grab and generate.
I would say early on when I got into mortgages, it was a call center. We were smiling and dialing for refinances. And my mentor in the industry, he told me, listen, there's times in the industry where you'll have to make 150 or 200 calls a day. And there's times that you'll have to make 20. And I think we've been in, these last few years, we've absolutely been spoiled. But right now, this type of market right now is where the rubber meets the road. When things get tough, the good agents, the good loan officers rise to the top and the rest fizzle. So all of the things that we need to be doing, I don't like just like, hey, it's a tough market and we're just going to kind of submit to that. This is when we really need to shine and do all of the things that we're talking about here. Like buyer's agents submitting a PDF that just doesn't work anymore, right? Because there's 17 other ones. Having a proper client consultation upfront is huge. When a client calls you and says, hey, you know what? Hey, I saw a house I like. Today's Thursday. Let's go see it on Monday. That doesn't play. It doesn't play. Like speed to offer is absolutely huge. And we have to be memorable. When an offer goes in, you have to make yourself memorable. So whether it's a tactic like Bialke is doing, which I think is genius, like we're not trying to make friends, we're literally, we want them to like us, but we want to be memorable. Like, so if it's a bad commercial sometimes that sticks in our brain, then that's what it is, but we have. But I think the key is right now is we can't blend in with all the other agents because there's a lot of bums out there. That's the reality. There's a lot of bums and a lot of people are not going to pick up the phone. A lot of people aren't going to do the extra things. So if we do the extra things every time, it doesn't matter what the client situation is. Sometimes it might take 10, sometimes it might take 15, but guess what? We don't submit to that. We go in every single time strong and do all the things that we need to do, and clients will win. Doesn't matter what their situation is.
Yeah. I'll piggyback off of that. I would say that as a listing agent, we're looking at the offers. We're trying to find the highest probability to get the close, right? The least amount of issues, the least amount of contingencies, the least amount of unknown that can happen. And we can only make offers at what our clients are able to make offers to, and we have influence over that. As a listing agent, I can tell you this. Sarah, you and I worked together on a transaction last year. Fantastic, super great communication, right? You were 100% professional. I would have thought you've been in business for 20 years. I didn't know you. However, we had a conversation and it was great. We used to work together on transaction management, exactly how you operate, exactly how you present yourself here, how you put together, exactly how you operate. You and I were on ALC. Obviously, we talk every 5 minutes. The reality is that when I see a professional on the other side, whether I know them or not, you don't have to be a comedian. You don't have to be a carnival juggler. You can be very stoic and still be a professional. Just step up and be a professional. write professional offers. If you're still handwriting offers, consider stop doing it. Consider it, because everybody looks at it and they're like, what the, really, nobody does that. If you don't understand how to use addendums, take a class, become a professional. You need to, not only does your buyer need to compete, you need to compete. You're part of the choice here.
What I'm hearing everybody say, including Graham, is stamina, keep with it, stay with it. People will fizzle out, clients will win, people will go up and down. Stamina, stay, carry to the finish line, and you'll be successful. Everybody will. If I had $1 for every time the client told me it's meant to be, it's meant to be, I'd be not on this panel anymore. I think they hire us. We have to take that into consideration. They hire us for advice too. So sometimes if it's meant to be, make it happen. I mean, don't let them just say that to you. You got them so close. Well, I guess it's meant to be. No, you're $2,000 off. We can get this for you. So, I mean, a little bit of, I think, is us also stepping up. You want
Did you
this,
catch
right?
that? You guys catch that? It's not a small thing. When people say, if it's meant to be, it's meant to be, versus if it's meant to be, we can make it happen. We're not forcing people what to do, but they don't know what they don't know. And so sometimes I think we're shy because we don't want to manipulate people, but we're not doing them a favor by not educating and leading them. This is leadership, which is getting them from here to here. It's advocacy, taking them through. And if it's a $2,000 difference and they don't have clarity and they're all wrapped up in their emotions, and you can unwrap that and get them to take a step back and realize we've run 22 miles, is it 23 that's a marathon? We've run 22, 26, 25 miles and we're right here. We've got this much further to go. Don't back out now. That's a big deal of how we can lead people in that. Cool. We're over on time. Thank you guys so much. We're going to do a follow-up to this. Graham is actually going to be leading a class on April 21st from a listing agent's perspective. So we'll dive more into what a listing agent is looking for on that side. Thanks to all of you for being here today.
Getting